The twin suns burned like fire in the sky, their light turning the sand into a golden sea of pain. Winds screamed across the barren desert, carrying heat so fierce it melted the edges of the old iron ruins buried beneath the dunes. And there, in the middle of that endless wasteland, stood a black stone pillar, smooth and tall, its surface glowing faintly red from the heat. Tied to that pillar was a woman, not human, not entirely alien to the universe, but broken in spirit, her skin cracked, her lips dry, her strength fading. Her name was Lyra Venn, once a commander in the Therian Empire. Proud and fearless until mercy became her crime. Her people had called her traitor because she refused to kill human children during the last war. So they tied her here, left her beneath the suns to die slowly, to make an example of what happens to those who show kindness. For 3 days she had endured, her mind fading between pain and memory, her heart whispering the same words again and again. Please, let them live. She could feel the heat crawling up her spine, biting into her skin, her breath coming in broken gasps. Above her, vultures of metal circled, desert scavenger drones that waited for the last spark of life to leave her body. In the distance, the air shimmered, and for a moment, she thought she saw movement. A mirage, maybe, or a ghost. Her eyes closed, but then, through the hum of the desert, came a faint sound, the low roar of engines. A ship, small and old, breaking through the horizon, its silver hull scratched and scorched from battle. It wasn't Therian design. Its engines screamed with human grit and defiance. Inside that ship sat Captain Marcus Hale, a human soldier, once part of Earth's frontier command, now wandering after the war's end. He had come to this dead world searching for scrap and signals, trying to find anything left worth saving. When his ship AI spoke, "Captain, I'm detecting a life sign." "Coordinates ahead," he frowned. "Out here?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "There's nothing alive on Therian Furu." "Life sign confirmed," the AI replied. "Faint but still active," Marcus hesitated. Because in this desert, a faint life sign often meant a trap. But something in his gut told him otherwise, something human, something stubborn. He adjusted course and brought the ship down near the signal, the landing thrusters stirring a storm of dust and heat. When the dust cleared, he saw her, a figure tied to a black rock. Motionless but breathing, Marcus stepped out, his boots sinking into the soft sand, the heat biting through his armor. The closer he got, the more he could see her wounds. Burned wrists, blistered skin, cracked lips whispering something he couldn't hear. He looked up at the sky, the twin suns blazing like cruel gods. And for the first time in years, anger filled his chest. He ran to her, cutting the ropes with his combat knife, the cord snapping with a hiss as her arms fell free. She collapsed into his arms, her skin almost too hot to touch. Her breath shallow, her eyes opened slightly, and she saw the blue symbol on his uniform, the mark of Earth. Her voice was weak, broken by thirst. "Human." "Why?" He looked at her, confused. "Why what?" "Why help me?" she whispered, barely conscious. Marcus smiled slightly, a sad, tired smile. "Because no one deserves to die like this." He lifted her gently, carrying her back toward his ship, each step heavy as the desert wind clawed at his face. His AI warned him through the comms. "Captain, her DNA match confirms Therian origin. She's the enemy." Marcus ignored it. "She's not the enemy anymore. She's dying." He reached the ramp and laid her inside the ship. Turning on the med unit, cool mist filled the chamber as nanobots began to repair her burns. Her breathing steadied slightly, but she still hovered between life and death. Marcus sat beside her, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Staring at her strange silver eyes, he had fought her kind for years. Seen them burn cities, crush colonies, destroy fleets, but this wasn't a warrior or a monster. Just someone abandoned by the same cruelty he had fought against. Outside, the heat storm grew stronger. Shaking the ship's hull, the AI's tone turned urgent. "Captain, multiple scans detected Therian drones inbound," Marcus swore under his breath. Rushing to the controls, the radar blinked red. 10, no, 12 drones circling the area, moving fast. "They must have tracked her beacon," he muttered. He powered up the engines, the sandstorm exploding outward as the ship rose into the air. From the viewport, he saw the black rock shrinking behind them, the place of her torment disappearing into light. But then her hand touched his arm weakly, her voice trembling. "They'll kill you for this." He looked at her and said softly, "Let them try." The ship broke through the storm and soared toward the upper atmosphere. Flames licking the hull, the drones followed. their plasma bolts lighting the sky in streaks of orange fire. Marcus gritted his teeth, pulling the throttle hard, the ship shaking violently. "Come on, girl. Hold together," he whispered to his ship. Inside the med chamber, Lyra's eyes fluttered open, her vision blurry. Through the noise and fire, she saw him fighting to save them both. And for the first time in all her years of war, she felt something she didn't understand: trust. The ship burst through the clouds into the black of space, leaving the burning world behind. But deep below, on the surface of Therian Auror, a small beacon blinked red, a message sent to the Empire. They knew she was alive, and they would come for her. Marcus didn't know it yet, but saving her would change everything. The war was over, but something far greater was about to begin. And somewhere beneath those twin suns, the rock still stood, silent witness to the day a human broke the chains of an empire. The ship trembled as it climbed through the thin air of Therian IV. Engines howling against the storm below. Marcus gripped the controls, sweat running down his face as warning lights flashed red across the cockpit. Behind him, the medbay hissed with cooling mist, keeping the alien woman alive. Barely, the drones still followed, fast and merciless, their plasma bolts cutting streaks of fire through the darkening sky. Every hit shook the hull. Every sound reminded Marcus that he had made a choice no soldier should make: saving the enemy. He slammed a switch and the ship rolled hard to the left, dodging a bolt that would have split them in two. "AI, divert power to rear shields," he ordered. His voice rough, the calm voice replied, "Warning, energy reserves dropping below 30%. "I said do it," Marcus snapped. And the ship's core pulsed brighter. The shields flared blue, taking the next hit without collapsing outside. One of the drones exploded in a flash of white. Consumed by its own weapon fire, in the medbay, Lyra stirred weakly, the hum of machines blending with the chaos outside. Her body ached, her vision blurred, but she could feel the movement, the sudden drops, the violent turns. She had been trained to know the sound of pursuit, the rhythm of battle in space. When she tried to sit up, pain shot through her chest, but she pushed against it. The door to the cockpit slid open and she saw him, the human, his hands flying across the controls, fighting death with nothing but willpower. For a moment she simply watched, the strange heat in her chest, not from fever but from something she could not name. A plasma bolt hit the rear thruster, and the whole ship screamed. Marcus cursed. Alarms filling the cabin. "AI, reroute power from med systems," and denied, the AI replied coldly. "That will terminate the patient." Marcus slammed his fist against the console. "Then suggest something useful." Lyra's voice came weakly behind him. "Let me help." He turned, shocked that she was even conscious. "You need to rest." "I can fly," she whispered, clutching the door frame. "I was a commander once." He hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Fine, just don't die on my ship." She moved beside him, her trembling hands finding the navigation panel. The alien script glowed faintly as she overrode the ship's sensors with her own code. Her people were still tracking them. She could feel it. Every Therian ship carried a pulse signature, and she could read it like a heartbeat. "Turn starboard," she said. "There's a canyon up ahead. Thermal pockets will confuse their scanners." Marcus followed, diving low into the storm, the ship cutting through the fiery clouds. Bolts of lightning danced around them, one hitting close enough to fry their outer sensors. The drones fired wildly into the dust, but their targeting failed, blinded by heat and chaos. "Nice trick," Marcus said between breaths. "You sure you're not trying to kill us faster?" Lyra almost smiled. "You humans never trust anyone, do you?" He grinned. "Only when they stop shooting at us." Her voice softened. "Then maybe there's hope yet." They broke free of the storm and into open sky, but Marcus knew it wasn't over. "They'll send more," she said quietly. "My people don't forgive betrayal." He leaned back in his seat, staring out at the fading horizon. "Then we'd better keep moving." Her eyes lingered on him, studying his face and the scars, the exhaustion, the strange gentleness that didn't belong in war. "Why did you save me?" she asked again, her voice almost lost beneath the hum of the ship. He didn't answer right away, his eyes still on the endless stars above. "Because," he said at last, "I was tired of watching good people die." She looked away, whispering, "My people would call that weakness." He turned to her, his eyes steady. "Then your people have forgotten what strength really means." The words hung in the air like a spark, refusing to die. Lyra felt something shift inside her. The shame, the guilt, the loneliness that had followed her since her punishment began. In this broken human ship surrounded by smoke and fire, she felt more alive than she had in years. A warning light blinked, and the AI spoke again. Incoming transmission. Encrypted Therian code detected. Lyra's heart sank. They found us. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls. How long until they reach us? 2 minutes, when the AI replied. Heavy craft, armed for capture. Marcus checked his weapons display on 2 plasma cannons. Half charged, 1 missile that hadn't been tested in months. He laughed quietly. Perfect odds. Lyra turned to him sharply. You can't fight them, not like this. I don't plan to fight, he said. Eyes hard. I plan to run. He pushed the throttle, and the ship roared into the thin atmosphere. Flames streaked across the hull as they broke through into space, the stars exploding into view behind them. A dark silhouette emerged, a massive Therian cruiser, its hull glowing with crimson light. Lyra's blood ran cold. That's a Hunter-class warship. They'll disable us in seconds. Marcus didn't blink. Then hold on. He flipped a switch under the console. A small glowing sphere dropped from the ship's belly. The AI protested. Captain, that's a proximity EMP mine. Detonation will disable all systems. Exactly, Marcus said. Pulling them into a sharp dive, the sphere detonated. A burst of blue light consuming the darkness. The Hunter ship's systems blinked out. Engines failing, drifting powerless, Marcus's ship spiraled away. Power gone, silence filling the void. For a long moment, there was only darkness and breathing. Then slowly, the emergency lights flickered back on. Painting the cabin in pale red, Lyra stared at him in shock. You just crippled their ship, he smiled faintly. And ours? She shook her head, half laughing, half crying. You're insane. He leaned back in his seat, exhausted. Maybe, but we're alive. Outside, the stars shimmered. Cold and endless, they were alone now, drifting between fire and darkness, hunted by an empire and bound by a choice neither could undo. And as the silence stretched on, Lyra whispered softly, You risked everything for a stranger. Marcus looked at her, his eyes steady. You're not a stranger anymore. Far behind them, the disabled warship sent a faint signal before it died completely, a warning that would reach the Empire soon. The hunt had only just begun. The stars looked peaceful, silent and endless. But Marcus knew peace never lasted long. His ship drifted through the cold, black void. Damaged, engines half dead, shields broken. Inside, the air was heavy with smoke and static. Every flicker of light a reminder that death waited close. Lyra sat on the floor near the med bay, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She still could not believe a human had risked everything to save her. Her people had taught her that humans were primitive, violent, unworthy of the stars. Yet here was one, a lone soldier, who had done what her entire empire never could. Show mercy. Marcus worked silently, his hands blackened with grease as he tried to fix the power conduit. The AI's calm voice filled the cockpit. Main thrusters offline, life support running on backup. Probability of survival at 47%, Marcus grunted. That's 47 more than I expected. The AI paused. You sound optimistic, Captain. He smiled faintly. You learn that after every war, if you're still breathing, you're winning. Lyra watched him from the doorway. Her body still weak, but her curiosity stronger. She walked closer, careful not to disturb the tools scattered around him. You keep fighting, she said softly. Even when the battle is over. Marcus looked up, sweat running down his neck. Because sometimes the fight after the war is the one that matters. She tilted her head. You mean survival? He shook his head. No, forgiveness. The word echoed strangely in her mind. A concept that didn't belong to her kind. Her people believed in control. In strength through obedience, not forgiveness. He finished tightening the last bolt, the ship humming weakly to life. Lights flickered, the engine coughed, and a low vibration filled the air. AI. Run diagnostics, Marcus ordered. Engines at 22%. FTL drive non-functional. But we can move, the AI replied. Marcus smiled. Then we're not dead yet. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the faint blue swirl of a nearby nebula. Lyra spoke quietly. When I was tied to that rock, I thought the suns would be the last thing I ever saw. Marcus nodded slowly. And now you're seeing the stars instead. She looked at him. a faint tremor in her voice. "You changed my death into life." He chuckled softly. "You're giving me too much credit." "I just cut a rope," she smiled weakly. "You cut more than that." "Human." The calm moment didn't last. A sharp beep pierced the air, the radar flashing red again. "Multiple contacts detected," the AI warned. "3 vessels approaching fast. Configuration, Therian Interceptor class." Lyra's breath caught. "They found us already." Marcus slammed a fist on the console. "Can't even die in peace." He powered the engines, the ship groaning as it began to move. Lyra grabbed the side rail, her eyes wide. "You can't fight them. Not like this." "I don't plan to fight," Marcus said. "But I sure won't sit still either." The enemy ships closed in, their bright red lights cutting through the black. Marcus steered the ship into the nebula's edge. A cloud of charged gas and lightning storms, Lyra shouted. "That's suicide." "The radiation will fry the circuits," he smirked. "Good thing I'm not a circuit." The ship entered the glowing mist, colors swirling outside like ghosts, lightning dancing across the hull. The radar scrambled, signals vanished, and the AI's voice faded in static. They were flying blind, chased by death through a storm of stars. One of the enemy ships fired blindly into the cloud, plasma bolts ripping past them. Marcus pulled hard on the control stick, dodging between bursts of energy. "Hang on," he said through clenched teeth. "If the lightning doesn't kill us, their aim might." A blinding flash struck the ship's right wing. The alarm screaming, Lyra stumbled forward, grabbing his shoulder. "You'll burn us both." Marcus laughed despite the chaos. "You said it yourself, I'm insane." Then, through the mist, Lyra saw something, a massive shadow drifting ahead, an old mining station long abandoned. "Marcus, there!" she shouted, pointing. "Hide inside." He followed her direction, steering the crippled ship toward the structure. They burst through a cloud of debris and slid into the hollow remains of the station. Engines dying completely. The enemy ship scanned the area but couldn't find them, the nebula's static blinding their sensors. After a few tense minutes, they turned away, fading into the storm. Only then did Marcus exhale, leaning back in relief. "Nice idea," he said. "Not bad for someone who almost cooked us alive." Lyra smiled faintly. "Not bad for someone who ignored every rule of survival." Inside the station, silence returned. They floated in a dead husk of metal, surrounded by forgotten machines and frozen air. Lyra walked toward a cracked viewport. Staring at the nebula's glow, she whispered, "I used to believe my empire was eternal, that nothing could touch us." Marcus stood beside her. "Every empire thinks that, until someone reminds them they're not gods." She looked at him, eyes soft. "And you humans think you are?" He shook his head. "No, we just refuse to kneel." The word struck her deeply, because she remembered kneeling before her brother, begging for mercy before they tied her to the stone. For the first time, she realized what freedom truly felt like. It wasn't given, it was taken, and this human, this reckless fool had given her that chance. She turned to him, voice trembling. "They won't stop hunting us." Marcus nodded. "Then we'll stop running." Her brow furrowed. "You mean fight back?" He smiled, eyes cold and determined. "Not yet, but soon, far in the distance." Beyond the nebula's edge, the Therian fleet regrouped, their sensors locked onto the faint pulse of the beacon still hidden inside Marcus's ship. The Empire now knew exactly where their traitor was. The chase through stars was only the beginning. The silence of the dead station didn't last long. Faint vibrations ran through the floor, distant hums echoing like thunder through hollow corridors. Lyra turned sharply, her alien senses catching what Marcus could not. The arrival of something massive. "Them," she whispered, her voice tight. "They've found us." Marcus ran to the console, slamming switches. The old systems coughing awake in bursts of static. The radar flared red, filling with blips. Not drones this time, but warships. The Therian Empire had come in force. "Guess they don't take rejection well," Marcus muttered, his jaw tight. He looked at Lyra, who stared at the screen with a mix of sorrow and fury. Leading the fleet was a signature she knew by heart. Lord Kael Ven. Her brother, her own blood, had come to erase her from the stars. The AI's voice broke the moment. "They are hailing us, Captain." Marcus frowned. "Let's hear it." The screen flickered, showing Kael's face, a cold, sharp, beautiful in a cruel way, his eyes burning like the sun she'd once faced. Lyra, he said softly. You shame our name by breathing. Lyra stood tall despite the tremor in her knees. I live because mercy has meaning, Kyle sneered. Mercy is weakness, sister. And weakness has no place in the Empire. His gaze shifted toward Marcus. And you, human, you meddle in things beyond your kind. Surrender her and I may spare you. Marcus chuckled, low and bitter. You must think I scare easy. Kale's eyes narrowed. No, human, I think you die easy. The transmission cut, replaced by the red glow of incoming fire. Explosions rocked the station. Metal screaming as plasma tore through the outer hull. Marcus pulled Lyra behind cover, sparks raining from above. We can't win this fight, he said. But we don't have to. Lyra looked at him, confused. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. We just have to survive long enough to make them question what they're fighting for. They ran through the corridors, searching for a path to the reactor chamber. If they could overload it, the explosion might destroy the entire fleet or at least give them a chance to escape. Lyra's breath came heavy, the memories of her past burning in her chest. She remembered standing beside Kale years ago, leading armies, crushing worlds in the name of purity. Now she ran from that same power, carrying the one thing her people feared most, compassion. As they reached the reactor doors, Marcus stopped her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do this, he said. I can handle it. Lyra shook her head. You've already risked enough this time. I choose to stand beside you. He looked at her, eyes soft but proud. Then let's make it count. The chamber opened, flooding them with pale blue light. The ancient fusion core pulsed slowly like a dying heart. Marcus started connecting cables, setting overload charges while the AI guided him. Outside, Kale's forces breached the station walls. Troops flooding in. They moved like shadows. Weapons drawn, armor glowing red. Lyra Ven. A voice echoed through the comms. Kale's voice cold and confident. I will drag you home in chains. Lyra closed her eyes, steadying her breath. No, brother, I am done with chains. She turned to Marcus. They're coming, we have minutes. Marcus nodded. Then we make those minutes hurt. The first wave hit hard. Plasma bolts tearing through the door as Marcus fired back with his rifle. Each shot precise, each movement born from years of survival. Lyra joined him, using fallen weapons from her people. Her aim deadly and sure, she moved like lightning, her silver eyes glowing with fire. Even Kale's elite soldiers hesitated. They had never seen Mercy fight back. But the numbers were endless. The door burst open again, and Kale himself stepped through. His armor shimmered gold, his weapon humming with energy. He looked at Lyra with something close to pity. You could have been a legend. She stood firm. I'd rather be free. Kale raised his weapon, firing, a bright arc of plasma tearing through the air. Marcus moved without thought, diving between them, the blast hitting him square in the chest. Lyra screamed as he fell, the sound raw, breaking through the noise of war. Kale lowered his weapon slowly. Pathetic. He dies for a traitor. But Lyra's eyes burned brighter than ever, her grief turning to fury. She grabbed Marcus's fallen sidearm, her hand shaking but steady. You never understood. Brother, she said through clenched teeth. He's not dying for me. He's dying for what we should have been. And with one clean motion, she fired, the shot piercing Kale's armor, striking his heart. He looked at her in disbelief before falling, silent. The chamber lights flared red, the reactor overload sequence now unstoppable. Lyra fell to Marcus's side. His breathing shallow, his eyes half open. Hey, he whispered weakly. We did it. Tears streaked her ash-stained cheeks. Don't you dare die now, he smiled faintly. You sound like my mother. She laughed through tears. Holding his hand tight, the reactor roared louder, the countdown echoing through the halls. Lyra dragged him toward the escape pod, every step fueled by desperation. They launched moments before the explosion, the old station vanishing in a blinding sphere of light. The shockwave hurled them into darkness, stars spinning wildly outside. Inside the pod, Marcus lay still, his pulse fading. Lyra whispered, You saved me once. Now it's my turn. She placed her hand on his chest, activating the pod's stasis field, freezing him in healing light outside. Fragments of the Empire's fleet drifted like ash in space. For the first time, the Therian people saw the fall of their own perfection. Lyra stared out through the viewport, her brother gone, her empire shattered. Her heart changed forever. In the silence between stars, she made a vow. For him I will rebuild something better, she whispered. And somewhere deep inside the pod, the human's faint heartbeat continued. Slow but steady, the empire had broken, but from its ashes, something new had begun. A fragile hope born between fire, mercy, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. The stars were quiet after the storm. Fragments of the shattered Therian fleet drifted through the void like dying embers. Lyra floated in the escape pod, holding on to silence. Her eyes fixed on the stasis chamber where Marcus lay motionless. His face was pale, his breath shallow, his body surrounded by faint blue light. For days she had watched him sleep in that glass coffin, the only sound the soft pulse of the pod's engines. Every moment she replayed what he had done, how he had stood between her and death, how he had fought for a woman not of his world. He had been human in ways her people had long forgotten to be. The pod drifted until its engines gave out near the rim of a neutral system. A patrol ship found them, not Therian, not human, but one of the Alliance worlds, a coalition that had risen after the war. Lyra sent a weak signal, her voice trembling. "I carry a survivor, please help." They took them aboard, their medics working tirelessly to restore the dying soldier. Lyra stood outside the chamber window, her reflection trembling in the glass. One of the doctors spoke softly. "He's strong, but he needs time." Lyra nodded, whispering, "Time is something he gave me. I will give it back." Weeks passed. Marcus slowly opened his eyes to the hum of strange machinery. At first, everything was blurry. White lights, soft voices, and the faint silhouette of someone sitting near him. "Hey," he croaked, his voice rough. "You still alive?" Lyra smiled, relief flooding her face. "Barely, but better than before." He tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "What happened?" "You destroyed the Empire," she said quietly. "And almost yourself." He laughed weakly. "Story of my life." When he finally stepped out of the med chamber, he found the station buzzing with whispers. Humans and aliens working side by side. Something once impossible, now real. Lyra walked beside him, explaining what had happened while he slept. When the Therian fleet fell, others rose against the old rule, she said. They saw mercy defeat tyranny. Marcus looked around, the hope in the air almost strange to him. "You rebuilt this." She nodded. "With their help, yes. But your act lit the spark." They stepped onto a balcony overlooking a vast orbital city, lights stretching like rivers below. Ships moved in harmony. Human vessels alongside alien craft. A sight once thought impossible. Lyra turned to him, her voice gentle. "We call it the New Conquered. A home for all who believe in peace," he smiled faintly. "You always were better at names." She looked at him seriously. "You gave us something greater than victory, Marcus. You gave us the courage to be kind," he chuckled softly. "Don't make me sound like some hero, I just did what was right." Lyra's eyes softened. That's what heroes always say, but deep inside Marcus he felt uneasy. He had seen too many wars end only to begin again under new names. "Peace doesn't last," he said quietly. "People forget." Lyra looked at him with determination. "Then we'll remind them." She led him to a grand chamber, a hall filled with leaders from many worlds. When she entered, the room fell silent. Every being watching the once exiled commander walk in beside a human soldier. Lyra raised her voice clear and strong. "We stand here today not as empires, but as survivors." She turned toward Marcus. "This man broke his chains, and in doing so, broke ours too." Applause thundered through the hall. Not for war, but for hope reborn. Later that night, Marcus sat alone by a viewport. Staring at the stars, Lyra joined him quietly, holding 2 cups of steaming drink. "Coffee," she said, smiling. "You humans can't live without it." He laughed, taking it from her hand. "And you aliens still think it's poison." They sat in silence for a moment. Watching the stars drift by, Lyra finally spoke. "Do you ever regret saving me?" Marcus looked at her, his voice steady. "Every scar I've got reminds me why I don't." She smiled, eyes glistening. "You changed everything." "You know." He shrugged. "Maybe, but the universe needed the change." Outside, a new dawn broke across the horizon of the orbital world. 1,000 ships prepared to launch, not for war but for rebuilding worlds ruined by pride. Lyra placed her hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I will return to Therian," she said. "They need to see what Mercy built." He nodded slowly. "And I'll go back to Earth, tell them what Mercy cost." They stood together, the soldier and the exile looking at the vastness ahead. She whispered, Promise me something, Marcus. He turned. What? Never let humanity forget what it means to be human. He smiled. Only if you promise never to stop being one. She laughed softly, the sound bright against the endless void. Then she walked toward her ship, her silver armor gleaming under the starlight. Marcus watched her leave. A quiet pride burning in his chest, he whispered to himself, the universe finally learned what kindness can do. As her ship disappeared into the stars, the narrator's voice would carry over your video. Empires fell, suns burned, and chains broke. But the greatest victory came not from power, nor weapons, but from mercy, taught by a single human who refused to look away. And somewhere, beneath twin suns long forgotten, the black rock still stood, the place where one woman was left to die, and where one man's choice changed the fate of worlds. Because sometimes the strongest chains are the ones we choose to break.